What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Do You Know, where we give you uncommon black facts. My name is John Dewberry, and as always, remember, the more you know your history, the more liberated you are. On today's episode, we have actually one of my favorite topics, the Negro-Caucasian Club. I love it. I love the name, man. Get straight to the point. We are Negroes and we are Caucasians. This is the Negro-Caucasian Club. I love it. Just a quick story on how they came to be. Back in 1925 at the University of Michigan, a black student named Lenore Beecher Smith and her white friend Edith Kaplan, they went to go have lunch at a college restaurant in between classes. They ended up waiting a very, very long time, and finally, when somebody arrived, a busboy came and just put a pile of dirty dishes in between them. So Lenore, she stared at him. She knew what was going on, and she got up and left. So they went to go see an instructor in the Department of Rhetoric named Oakley Johnson. He was known to be like sympathetic of all the harsh treatment that the black students were getting, all of the discrimination and racism that was going on back then. He had a heart back then. And so he took them to go see the Dean of College of Literature, Arts and Science, and their hope was that he would influence them to the restaurant owners on college to service black students, because they weren't servicing them at the time. And so his response was, "Why, I'm very sorry about this. But you know, the university has no control over the businessmen of the city. Our domain ends at the edge of the campus. We can't do anything at all. But you can express the university's desire that its students be treated properly. After all, they're students here regardless of color." "No," was his response. So the students and Professor Oakley Johnson, they decided to do something themselves, and they gathered them a bunch of friends, and they named themselves the Negro-Caucasian Club of the University of Michigan. And it's thought to be the first organization of its kind at that time on any American college campus. So at that, just a little bit, just tell y'all just what was going on back then. Of course, you know history, but basically, like black people at that particular school only made up a small student part of the body. They live in segregated areas. They only joined the white students in the classrooms. Black women had to, all women stayed on the university dorms except the 6 or 7 black women that were there. They had to arrange them in a nearby boarding house nearby the university. It's just like, bro, like, just put them, it's 6 or 7 of them, just put them in the dorm. Like, y'all going through this extra work, like, logic. The black men had to live in one of the 3 black fraternity houses, which were Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi, and Kappa Phi Alpha, or they had to live with their families. And they also weren't allowed to use the swimming pools or attend any university dances. So the Negro-Caucasian Club asked to be recognized as an official student organization, and their mission statement was to work for a better understanding between the races and the abolition of discrimination against Negroes. But the dean of students advised them that, like, it would be cool for them to meet and talk, but y'all could not work for the abolition of discrimination against Negroes. Like, if y'all want to be recognized, y'all had to take that off. And it's just like, they was like, okay, cool, we'll do it. And so they changed it to, the aim of the Negro-Caucasian Club is to encourage a spirit of friendliness and fair-mindedness between the races, and to study and discuss impartiality the problems arising in relations between them. Very mellowed out. They mellowed it out a lot. But even this made the faculty nervous. So after 8 weeks of very careful consideration, they finally granted its approval, but only for 1 trial period, and you couldn't use the University of Michigan. You had to take that name off of it. We don't want to be associated with that. So the Negro-Caucasian Club ended up agreeing to it, because I'm sure they saw the bigger picture. Sometimes you got to compromise and sacrifice a few things to get to the bigger goal. So they ended up moving on, and they consisted of 26 student founders. Most of them were black, mostly were women, about 5 were white. Check my numbers on that, because I only found 1 source on that. Couldn't really, just fact check me, I'm not really sure on that. But anyway, a couple faculty members stepped forward to support the club as well as an advisory committee. Those included an educational psychologist, a mathematics professor, and an instructor in botany. This is my favorite part right here. So the club ended up sending 100 surveys to white students, and they were asking questions like, how many Negroes have you met other than your maid or your butler? And all Negro men are drooling for the chance to rape white women. True or false? Let me address that part real quick. There has been a lot of fear-mongering dog whistle tactic for a very long time that black men want to rape their white women. Like, we want to just, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it has been a thing that has been used for centuries, and it has worked forever. And it's even been used in ties with marijuana, illegalizing marijuana, because they said that marijuana made Hispanic and black men aggressive and violent and want to solicit sex from white women. Like, look it up. It's wild. Like, know your history, dog. I'm telling you, bro. It's crazy. So with these surveys, they concluded that the problem was one of belief in the subhumanity of Negroes and unfamiliarity. On this basis, we decided to bring outstanding Negroes to the campus to show people that there were Negroes who were not hewers of wood and carriers of water. So they ended up inviting the philosopher Alain Leroy Locke, who was a key figure in the Harlem Renaissance, W.E. Du Bois. He was a founder of the NAACP, cannot talk today, and other prominent key black figures. I'm almost done. So they ended up meeting with actually a couple important people, like A. Philip Randolph, who would later, he was a labor leader who would later go on to organize the first Washington March for the Civil Rights, and also Frank Murphy, who was a liberal Detroit judge who would later go on to defend minority rights in the U.S. Supreme Justice Court. So they ended up meeting with some very important people. More than that, but ultimately, the Negro-Caucasian Club, they helped to relieve like the black students their feeling of isolation, and they were just trying to include them. That was it. And so here's a quote. It was the only forum for airing black people's views and students' problems. For many of them, it represented the first social contact with white people. And I have one more quote by Miss Sarita Davis, I think that's how you say her name, who's a white student. She says, "Because of those associations, I lost my black-white feelings. Ever since, a Negro has been another human being to me." And that's another story. But this is one of my favorites because just with all this racial stuff that's going on right now, and I'm sure a bunch of us have had many conversations with. I've personally had the opportunity to have conversations with black and white people, and it's like, I'm just finding out, like, it's just a lot of it's a lack of understanding, a lack of communication, and like, if we could just talk to each other. I feel like when you look at any relationship across the board, whether it's romantic, friendship, I don't know, business, co-workers, boss, like, relationships all across the board. You have to have good communication. We figured that out, as those communication is very, very, very important. And when it's off, when it's bad, it leaves room for assumptions and misunderstandings, and you become angry. You think one side is doing this and the other side is doing that, when really you don't know, because there's no communication. So if we could just communicate. But dog's walking right now. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm almost done. But yeah, that's ultimately it. So I'm gonna stop because you keep walking. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Do You Know. Hope you guys learned something new today. See you guys next time.